All right. Welcome to the second in our webinar series hosted by the American Romuldale CVM Association. I'm Cody Nicholson Stratton. I'll be your host today. This one will be put on by Cody Kinsman. Before I introduce Cody, however, I wanted to go over a few things with you guys. The webinar is going to be hosted on the American Romuldale YouTube following this, so you'll be able to go back and reference it. We'll be discussing preparing your sheep for show in this webinar. If sorry, I just was looking at something else. If you have any questions, please drop them into the chat bar as we go through. We'll probably be presenting for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for question and answer following. So please drop any questions you have in the chat bar as we're going. That way we can get to them or hold them till the end. But if you drop them there, you won't forget them, and I can facilitate making sure we get them answered. You can follow the American Romuldale CVM Association on YouTube as well as on Facebook. And while this webinar is free and we're providing it as a service to Romuldale breeders and the general sheep industry, and it's the second in our 6-part series, if you like what the Romuldale Association is doing, we would, of course, welcome your support through a membership. The $20 membership will get you our quarterly newsletter, which features articles written just for it, as well as some other membership perks. So we definitely encourage you, if you feel like it, join the American Romuldale Association. It's just americanromuldale.org. You can do it all online. And I believe that will get us going. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our host, our presenter for tonight. I'm very lucky to know him. He's actually in the other room in our house right now. We were recording on our sheep this morning. So today we will have Cody Kinsman, which is from Vintage Oak Livestock and Custom Fitting. Cody grew up in rural Nevada, raising and showing Suffolk sheep. To pay for college, to pay for his college tuition, Cody sheared and fit sheep professionally before aging out of a junior division. Cody competed at the All-American and won the fitting contest for 2 years in a row. So he is a very accomplished fitter. He also fit professionally, both wool sheep and meat breeds. And today, Cody and his partner reside in Washington State. And when he's not teaching, Cody spends his time developing his flock of registered Tunis. So, Cody, welcome, and I will unmute you so you can start. Or you have to unmute yourself.
Great.
There we go. I will hand it off to you, and I'll go ahead and start the video.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for that great intro. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see your faces. I appreciate you taking the time to invest in sheep knowledge today. What I do, this is what I've learned and works for me. There's more than one way to skin a cat, so there's many different options and approaches we can take to fitting sheep to making them look their best for show. But before we get started with the video, I just want to talk about the why we do this. We're in a sheep show. The sheep need to look their best. So we want to present that animal to the best of its ability, of our ability, and to make the sheep look as good as he or she can look. It's the same as if we were showing dogs or horses. We want them to put on the parade and the show to win, because we want to win, right? We want to do what's best for our animals, not only from a humane standpoint and a husbandry standpoint, but we want these sheep to look good because we have to go out and feed them every day. So we'd much rather look at a good one and a pretty one than we would one that is more rugged or just functional. So that's kind of the why we need to get the sheep fit for show. And like I said, there's more than one way to do it. I'm going to walk through the process of how I do it. This is what works for me. But every sheep that I fit is like a rough draft of an essay. the more I go back to making edits and little improvements upon my work, that sheep's going to look better and better each time I get them on the stand. Um, Now, I grew up with Suffolk meat sheep. We don't care about their wool so much. It could be used in applications like carpet or maybe sock wool, but Suffolk fleeces are notoriously not high quality fleeces. So when we turn the table and look at a Rommeldale or a fine wool breed, where we really do value those fleeces and their quality and the amazing luster and all of the fun intricacies of the wool breeds that I've learned about since coming to the wool side of the industry. It's a sacrifice, and I do. At first, I didn't get it. People would complain, "Oh, you're ruining that fleece. Please don't chop it up like that." And I'm like, "Yeah, but the sheep needs to look really good." And unfortunately, whittling and carving away at the fleece is how we shape them to make them look their best. My argument in response to ruining that fleece to get the sheep ready for show is if we do this early enough, you'll see on the video how we worked two lambs today. The first lamb, raw fleece, we went in and Pat sheared him. He's not very old at all, just a few months old as a lamb. Doing this early on, we're going to sacrifice a small amount of their fleece to let them grow back in with the right shape that we want the sheep to look. And then if we manage and maintain that fleece throughout the summer, we can still go back to a 3-inch staple length by the end of the year and have a fleece that's able to be hand spun. So that is my argument in response to you're trashing this fleece, and I get it. The more I learn, when we know better, we do better. So for me, learning to respond to the quality of the fleece that I'm trashing when I cut it up into tiny little pieces, my heart has definitely learned to take a new perspective on that topic. But there is time if we do it early and manage throughout the summer, we can still get the sheep where they need to be. Um, so when we watch this video, I'll have you know that we did, like I said, the two sheep that we worked on today, we've just videoed ahead of time so that we could sit and talk through it now. But please drop questions in the box through as we go. I'll just be rambling on about what I love to do most. Cody will help us out by letting you know when your questions pop up, and I'd be happy to speak to them. Okay, with that, Cody, if you'll go ahead and press play, then I'll start narrating my process.
You're good to go.
Awesome. So this is not a Rommeldale. This is one of my Tunis ewes that we have on the stand, and little Katie behind there. When I was teaching her how to cut out sheep, I spray painted on those lines. The spray painted line is a visual of like that Ninja Turtle or the camel saddle that we leave on the back and butt of the sheep. But everything below those lines and in front, that gets slicked off as if they were being flock shorn for the year. I thought I'd start with that visual. You're good. We can get into the video now. Thank you. We'd start with that visual just to show you where it should be slicked and then where we should carve above those lines. We want to leave some wool to carve the shape to make them look their best. Okay, so I start with the head of the sheep. That gives me an opportunity to clear out their cheek and their jaw and around their ears and their head, so that I can get that headpiece cranked up on the trimming stand so that I have control of the sheep and they're safe and I'm safe, and then no one's jumping around because I've got them appropriately put up and restrained so that they're not jumping around. So clearing off the head, it all takes some time, but I take a lot of time here to get the detail work done smooth, because the smoother I get it now and the less tags I leave, then when the fleece grows back out, all I have to do is trim the very tips, and then I'm preserving the length of my staple length. Now with the sheep that have the woolly heads on their poles, I just am kind of rough shaping it at this point, it's not really important that we get the head fine tuned all the way. It's good enough that we are happy to look at that head as we go into the barn to feed every day. Because what's going to happen is fast forward later into this clip and then down the road, 6 to 10 weeks away, we'll have a sheep with a longer fleece, and then we'll just polish it up and make it look ready for the show ring. But right now, we're laying the groundwork and the foundation for a solid fleece that is going to give the sheep its best look. Going back to the lines the spray painted line I drew across the sheep, we want the wool on top of their body, over their back and on their butt. That's the most important part of the sheep from a marketing standpoint. When we look at these carcass quality features, that's where a majority of the high quality cuts of meat come from, is the back and the leg. So that's why we want to use the wool to our advantage to shape them to a more muscular and appealing shape. But everything below that line where you can see I'm shearing off now, it's all just getting slicked down to nothing. This is a natural colored lamb. He's really hard to see, but we wanted to use consistency front to back. And since Romuldales come in white and natural colored, we thought we'd go ahead and use this guy as an example. So to talk a little bit about the tools that I'm using a 13 tooth comb right now to shear off everything down to the skin that's below that spray paint line. They are really hard to see, the natural colored sheep, especially when you get down into areas that are tight, like I'm shearing his sheath and testicles areas now. If I have to, I get down on my hands and knees and make sure that I'm holding the skin tight so that I'm not shearing any wrinkles. That's going to be most important in keeping everyone safe without cutting anything that we don't want to cut. Also, in between their hind legs, the woolier they are, they'll grow wool everywhere. So I am getting in between his hind legs right now to shear that off and clean it up. From a hind view, if the more we clean out the inside of their legs, it's going to open up a window for the judge and any evaluator to see that this is a rugged sheep that's got a lot of mass and width of body. And you can see that by opening that window and making them look wider from behind. Occasionally, like right now, I'm working on the tail head or the dock that I'm shaping, but I'm really trying to just get the 13 tooth comb work done as fast as I can. As soon as what's below that line is sheared off, then I'll move to a 9 tooth comb and really just carve and shape the wool that's sun bleached right now. And this is one of those moments where I would say, do as I say, not as I do, because I'm getting a little distracted in my process, and I use the 13 tooth comb to kind of shape up the top side of him, just to kind of get that started. Now I'm moving in with some water and a hard bristled pony brush to open up that fleece. Hot water is best because it's going to mix with the lanolin and the grease and open up that fleece so that when my shears go to hit the wool, it's actually going to cut instead of just bog down and cause a divot. So I really want everything to be brushed out just slightly, enough that when my shears go through, it's shaping instead of dragging. You'll notice that I switch hands quite frequently. I am ambidextrous. I'm a lefty, but I do switch back and forth. The advice that I have to you there, and poor little Katie, who I'm teaching to shear now, she's like, I don't know what he's ever doing because he is always using his left hand, and then all of a sudden he switches. So bear with me and know that I have sheared hundreds of sheep that looked really bad. So if you take the time to just practice and find what works for you, you're going to mess a few up. They'll look bad. But get out there and cut out brood ewes, cut out weather sheep, cut out anything that's going to the sale barn. That's how I learned to practice and get better at my craft, is because I have made several mistakes, and it's a matter of not doing it until you can get it right. It's doing it so many times that you can't get it wrong. Even then, he's not perfect. Looking at this final patch shearing, Cody, will you pause it? Thanks. The the lamb that we had on the stand there, he's not perfect. Looking back, I'd like to take his hip down a bit. From his hip loin junction back, it just looks like he's popped up a nickel, which makes him seem like he's up in his hip, and we don't want that. We want them to be dead level, from the point where their shoulders meet their neck all the way to their dock. We want them to be dead level. So ideally, I would have clipped that up, but like I said, every shearing job, every patch shearing and fitting job, it's like an essay. You go back and rework and fix the rough draft to make a final draft. The more times that we get them back up on the stand and then rework their fleece and polish and really develop their look from the side, that's when we're going to get them looking really fine-tuned. And then, thank you, you can play it. The picture of Katie here working on that Tunis ewe, this is just a much better vision that you can see because she's a white fleeced animal. We're taking them down to the skin there. Like, that is the point of using a 13 tooth comb, so that it's smooth and everything's blended, because when it grows out, perfect timing. This ewe is one that we cut out 10 weeks back. So this is what she looked like, or she looked like the ram lamb that we were working on previously. And now she looks like this. So we're coming back around and we're working on her as if she were going into the show ring today. Does anyone have questions so far that they want to jump in on, or things that we don't want to lose? Ideas, questions? Feel free to write them down or put them in the chat, and then we can address them after I'm done talking a lot. Okay, we can play again, Cody. So I'm trimming their hooves, especially for the sheep that we keep in off pasture. Their hooves are going to grow much faster than they would if they had the opportunity to go out and wear their hooves down. So I like to trim their hooves every time I get them on the stand. It just gives me the assurance that their feet are growing quality hoof material and they're not damaged. Also, the way that their leg structure gains comfortability and that habit of the way that their legs move, their hooves can greatly impact that. Strong foundation leads to a better house. So let's make sure that the hooves are trimmed all the time or as needed, so that their legs are standing straight and square. Then I moved in with some more hot water, and as I said earlier, this just opens the fleece. It makes it more pliable, and I can manipulate it more when it's open instead of crusted down with that the lanolin that kind of binds it all together. Plus, we've blanketed these sheep, so they're kind of matted down almost. It's kind of held together tight because the blanket sat on top of their fleece while they've been grazing and out living their lives. So we're just kind of fluffing that and pulling it up. Like I said, if we were going into the show ring today, we want her to look polished and clean. So I have tons of towels that I carry with me, and the sheep use them a lot. So I just polish and make that sheep look as beautiful as they can, to make sure that whoever looks at them really thinks, wow, these people take pride in their animals because they're clean, they're well cared for, they're fed well. We really want that impression to just be glowing, so to speak. Sheep can speak for themselves. Again, I'm bellying and cheeking her out. That's where I'm starting again. the reason why we take their cheeks down every time is because as we're showing them, that's going to get all nasty if we're holding them by their wool and their face. Um, it's not going to look very good. We want it to be clean and sleek. So we take their cheeks down and then kind of just go around the edges of the animal and clean up what needs to be tidied. As we brush them out, you'll find a little bit more every time. But the way that we get their lines appropriately spaced and the way that I'm lifting her dock and tail head right now, that's going to improve her look from the side. Now, study pictures of sheep that you like. If there are fitting jobs out there that you're like, wow, that sheep is glowing and I like the way that that sheep looks and I'd like my sheep to look like that, just play with it. Study pictures that you see online or in magazines and then try and accomplish that same look on your sheep. The structure and the fine tuning of the legs and their top lines, all of these structural components of the sheep, we really have to fine tune that with time, and it takes the skilled eye. Um, but learning how to run your clippers and your shears, that's also important, so that when you're using the right tool for the job, it gets done correctly. Is it as choppy for everyone as it is for me? I'm wondering if the speed is.
On my side, it looks good, but it might just be on your side.
Okay. Well,
So
hopefully everything will catch nicer and smooth, but um, I'll just kind of speak to the shape that I'm trying to give them right now. When we step back from 10 to 15 feet off the sheep, that's the ideal uh, safeguard that we can use as we're fitting. Take a step off the sheep. The judge is not going to evaluate them, but only for a moment when they're splitting the fleece to evaluate their wool quality. Um, but the big picture of the sheep, let's take a big step back off of them to see how their lines are appearing. When I say their lines, I mean her top line, where head and neck tie into her shoulders. We want that to be a 90-degree angle and then go straight off their back through their dock. We want their legs to be long and the leg wool is important. Not all sheep have leg wool, but it balances them top to bottom and it gives that appealing look like, oh, this isn't a marshmallow standing on toothpicks, but this is a rugged animal that has a lot of substance and mass to them. They're durable. They're going to be able to survive on pasture. Now we're getting into the point where I've fine tuned with the electrics a bit. We've taken some time to use the pony brush to get them wet and then brush them up a bit and card them. I very lightly card wool sheep because the quality and the integrity of their fleece will be ruined if we fully card a wool sheep out. But once they're plucked up enough that fleece is standing on end and it's pliable, the malleability is there so that we're not creating divots, but rather we're just trimming the very tips in the right shape. That's when once we've prepared the fleece in that way, we can come back with the hand shears and really use the fine tuning that tool provides to give a velvety smooth finish across the sheep's body, and that's appealing. It makes them look like they're very smooth, they're well cared for, they're just glowing. That's the look that we want. um, So just taking lots of small snips with the hand blades will help achieve that. Again, it takes practice uh, to get better at that skill. And even then, some fleeces just aren't going to set right. If you've carded it the best you can and then set the blades to it to try and smooth it as evenly as you possibly can, some fleece is just really tricky to get to stand and set perfectly. So get them as good as you can. Um, when you take that 10 to 15 steps back off the sheep, if the big picture looks good and then you maintained the quality of the fleece so that when the judge cracks the fleece to evaluate the quality of their wool, then you can feel good about that. I don't think every little thing has to be perfect, although we strive for perfection, because if we aim small, we'll miss small. As you can see, I'm working on the show side of the sheep, and then I have Katie working on the off show side. When we're looking at the profile of the animal, the show side is when the animal's head is on the right. That's the side that the judge is going to see the most of the time, and that's the side that we want to look. We put our A team on that side. So I'm working through the show side while our novice intern is working on the off side, and that's giving her the opportunity to practice skills, and it speeds up the process. The less time that we can have the sheep standing on the table, the better. If they're standing up there for 3 hours, they're tired. They don't want, I don't know anyone who would want their head tied into a sheep stand, but certainly not for a really long period of time. So the more comfortable that we make the sheep, the more we care for them, the happier they're going to be. And then they'll work with us instead of against us. Again, we're just fine tuning every little detail we can. Um, as you'll notice, this is a good angle to see where I was talking about opening the window between her hind legs. The more that we shape and bring down the wool tight there, she's going to look like she's wider from leg to leg. And then above, that's where the mass of her body and muscle will be. And so we want those legs nice and wide. And then we take care to shape the butt or leg muscle as best we can. Um, as I'm rounding off the top right here with the hand shears, that's a tricky spot because we want that line across her top line to be dead level and smooth. Um, so we have to manipulate the fleece and take a little more here, a little less there in order to achieve that look from the side. Um, and I just take really great care to look at the fine details. Anything that we can make look more perfect, that's what I'm aiming to do. You'll see that I'll brush the fleece up with my hand or even get a curry comb. That'll help me reset the fleece because the fibers they're supposed to be standing out straight on end. That's the way we want them, because then if we carve and take down little bits here and there, then eventually it's going to look perfect. But you'll notice that anything that touches the fleece kind of crinkles it down. And then when you trim along the top or touch it later, then a tag just randomly comes back out. So we want to make sure that we are working the fleece and brushing it over so that we've got a smooth picture instead of one that's got little tiny crinkles coming back out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I use both hands, so it depends on where I'm standing. Um, I'll access a certain area of the sheep, maybe from a different side, depending on where I'm standing. I'm like, oh, I've got something to work on over there. I can hit it really well from this angle with this hand. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If we live in a right-handed world. So if you're only using your right hand, you just it might help if you find a pattern and then stick to that pattern. Um, like saying you're starting right here at the show side ear and then you work your way around the sheep, one and done. That's great. The way that my brain works, I'm all over the place. I might go to set a tool down or help something on the other side of the room, and I'll get distracted and then come back and start somewhere else. But that's one way that I could work to improve my practice is to make a pattern and then stick to it. It's what works for everyone. I just really focus on getting each section of the sheep shaped up the way I want it to. While we're standing here looking at this front end, I like a tight front end. There's to me is not a lot of reason to leave a bunch of wool up on their brisket and chest because we want them to be sleek and tight fronted. Um, I spoke earlier to the highest quality cuts of meat. The marketable carcass traits are in the back. So why would we want a big bulky neck? That's a question that I would pose in response to someone who wants to leave a bunch of wool up there. Also, when lambs are born, they come out front first. So if they've got a big bulking chest, that's not going to look sleek and presentable. Plus, they're going to have a harder time getting out of the birth canal. So when we exhibit these animals at full age and they're full grown, we want to accentuate that trait of look at this nice sleek end. It's still got enough fleece that we can evaluate for consistency around the animal, but we don't need to leave 2 to 3 inches up there. We can tell that from the little bit that we've shown how consistent they are. So we'll go ahead and rework this sheep all over the summer with this same pattern. So like I said, we cut her out 10 weeks back. This is what she would look like if she went into the show ring today. We'd be very happy with this. She looks presentable. She looks cared for. She's clean. But we'll continue to model and perfect this clip job throughout the summer, and then we'll still be able to use her fleece after shearing. This is kind of a 360 view that Cody made walking around. He's an amazing videographer, very talented. I'm dreaming of making a video like this for a long time, but thanks to Cody's skills in the tech side of things, we made it happen. So this is exciting. Now I'm working through getting her head put together. Every breed has a little different way that they like their heads to be shaped. Rommeldale's, from a show ring standpoint, I don't know of one, so we've just kind of come up with what makes Cody happy because they're his sheep. He's the one that has to look at them to feed them every day, so we want them to look appealing to the people that own them. So what I've kind of molded for, maybe if I've modeled this after any one breed, maybe it's the Dorset, where I just kind of trim their head to be a tight, sleek angle. And then when you get into the Rommeldales, some of them have tons of head wool and some of them have a tiny little patch. So it's sheep by sheep, making that animal look its best. I just kind of aimed for the dome look up front. And as you can see, we did not trash the fleece quality. We went ahead and split the fleece so that we can evaluate. I didn't trash it by soaking it in water. I did not card out every piece of crimp in the fiber. I really just tried to accentuate the look that we created 10 weeks back.
Okay. Let me go ahead and start with the questions. I'm going to stop the screen share because we don't need that anymore, I don't think. So we'll stop the screen share. All right, so I have a couple questions here that we were dropped in the chat, and then I'll open it up after we get through those for other questions. If anyone has them, let me pull up. There was one. The first question was from a fiber, and this is Leah. And it was from a fiber sheep standpoint. Is that enough fiber left for the judge to be able to look at the look at and judge their fiber. Um, and I can answer that one for you real quick. In that, so these sheep were trimmed, cut out 10 weeks ago. Um, they could go in the ring today, but we're really aiming like that ewe is going to be showing the last week of July. That's going to be her first show. So we're definitely planning pretty far out for when these sheep are going to be showing and how we're trimming them. Does that work for you, Cody, as an answer?
I think so.
Yeah. The next question was, what brand of clippers are you using?
I have a couple different brands here. So this is my premier model. I've had this since I was 11 years old, and I'm about 400 now. So these have lasted a very long time. Um, this is a great set of shears. The other machine that I have is a Heiniger model, and it's the same exact machine made by a different company. The thing that is really different about the two that I have and used on the sheep today is that this one has a 13 tooth comb and this one has a 9 tooth comb. And what I mean by that is that these tiny little teeth, if you can see, oh, maybe it's best right there. Yeah, there's 13 of these bad boys coming across here, whereas on this scary one, there are 9. So that means whatever falls between those teeth, it's coming off. That includes a finger, it includes an ear, or the cord to your clippers. The 9 is great. It's an advantage because it gets through the fleece faster, but like I said, it's whatever wrinkled falls between those blades, it's coming off. So I try to stick to carving. As an advanced shearer, I can slick shear with a 9 tooth just fine. But if you're learning the new skill of shearing sheep or how to fit sheep and carve them, I would recommend staying away from the skin with those just so that you can whittle and carve out the shape of the animal that you want without cutting any of the skin.
Awesome. All right. Ashley Hoffman asked, the blanket portion that is left when rough shearing, how much staple length is being left? Are you taking the tips of the staple with the 9 tooth just to roughly carve out the desired shape?
Yes. So it's different for every animal. I can't say there's 3/4 of an inch here behind their shoulder and then 2 inches on their butt. I can't speak to that because it's different for every animal. And some animals are really big fronted and really tiny in their back end. That's not ideal, but could I make it look right by trimming it down? Yeah, I sure could. And we would just hope that the judge is strong enough to evaluate around that fitting job. Um, Repeat the middle part of the question, Cody, please.
How much staple length is being left? So, and or are you just kind of taking off the tips and blending it to make it look smooth and desirable, the desired shape?
Mainly the tips at this point. I'll go back and take their belly wool down and carve their cheeks and then open up whatever fine tuning points I need to. But there's still a very strong staple length left at the end.
Okay. What is in your sprayer?
It's just water. Today I just water. There are a couple different products and the hot water. That's very important because it's going to heat up the lanolin and make it pliable. If not, it's just going to be that crunchy crust that we all know so well. Um, and we don't want to get into the fleece with our shears in that way because then we'll create divots. Warm water is great. Some people use bay rum, especially for the long wool sheep. Uh, Rag oil is a product that I really do like because it's a lanolin base, and they use it a lot in the cattle industry. But that lanolin will help revive the fleece and give it some more luster and quality, or look to its quality. Um, but those are two products, and I don't use anything besides water for the most part.
Okay. The next question is, do you choose the desired length or is there a required length for the CVMs? I can give that one if you'd like. So mostly we're choosing a desired length that we want to see on them. By the end of summer, they're going to have quite a bit of wool stacked on them, right? Because they've been shown and they've been stacking up wool. But you should refer to your show rules because they will specify often minimum lengths of fleece for your breeds. I believe, as Rumbledales are a fine wool, I believe or Black Sheep Gathering, it's like an inch to an inch and a half, I think is the minimum, which obviously that's not a whole lot of fleece to evaluate. So you want to definitely plan ahead for how much you're going to be leaving on. Um, I like a yearling ewe. Personally, I like a yearling ewe with a bunch of fleece on by the end of summer because they look big and powerful and broody as you're going into the breeding season. But um tail. Okay. So Jody says includes electric cords too. So yes. As far as cutting them off. And then Leah asked, how would you change the way you shear the back end if the sheep has some tail left instead of like a show dock? So if it were to have like a couple vertebrae.
Yes. That's a husbandry management standpoint. If there's a tail there, what I do is typically just shear straight up the tail, so that from the side it's still that nice profile of the butt that we're looking for. I'm kind of carving out the butt cheek right now, and then it goes up the side. But then you would just leave enough wool there that it would meet the tip to make their hip as if that were the dock. So basically slick the what's left of that tail, slick that off, and then use the wool around the hip to make the strong 90-degree tail head from the side. It's one of those things you got to play with. The big piece of advice that I would give you, and it's a hard pill to swallow because you're cutting into the fleece. In one of those cases where you've got the round hip with the tail dock, you're going to need to take the top of their hip down in order to meet the depth that tail creates, if that makes sense. So the more wool you take off the top of their back here is going to help you in that case, making the sheep look level and square from the side.
That is all the questions we have in the chat. So I can open it up. You guys have the ability to unmute if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask while we are live. We have about another 10 minutes that we can do that. So go ahead and ask your questions you might have, and we'll open up here for a couple of seconds or minutes. Jody, did you have a question?
I
You
do.
popped up.
Sorry. I'm
Yeah.
trying to make dinner. Um, so I have a question because, okay, this is from experience. I just got done doing all my Ramadells. When you make a divot, a rather large divot, at what point do you just go shorter?
Yes. Been there, done that. Yeah, when you make a large divot and it's one of those things that you can't take back, because when it's cut off, it's cut off. You've got to learn to blend the rest of the body.
Oh,
So
I can see I can see skin on the back of his neck. Oops.
if it were like, if you're looking at it from the side, then which part of his neck, like the side of his neck or the front of his throat? Or
Back of the neck where it comes down to the body.
Yeah, I think you can fix that. Hopefully, they're not ewe-necked. That structure in the sheep's neck when they dip before they go up into their neck. Hopefully, the structure is strong enough that if you do need to slick down the rest of that area to try and reblend and shape that look. The Cheviot breed does not. I'll pick on them as an example. Their top line does not go straight to the base of their neck and then 90-degree up. So the way that those breeders and fitters have learned to make the Cheviots have that 90-degree look is to leave more wool on their neck so that they can create a crest from the point of the top of their shoulder to the back of their head, and that's why they have that big cresty arch. You'll do the opposite, if I'm understanding correctly. You're gonna have and
right here.
yeah, you'll recreate that same 90-degree look, wider out here on the sides, but then
Okay.
take height on the back of his head. And then when you look at that sheep from the profile, yeah, it's gonna look a little funny. Like,
You
well,
just keep your hand there.
yeah, keep your you can reshape by recarving the shape of the rest of the neck. His neck might look like it sets forward a bit more, but it'll regrow, and then you can shape it down accordingly.
For the next one. Okay. Thank you, Cody.
Art and a skill.
No, it wasn't the ram that you did.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, we all like. I was thinking of the yearling ewe that I showed a couple years back. She leaned into the shears, and I took her practically down to her rib cage a week before the California State Fair. I was very upset, but I had to learn to like reshape the rest of that side of the sheep to meet that big divot.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Cody, you're muted.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question here in the chat from iPad number 2. And it said, here in the South, it gets hot and humid. My girls are 95% pastured. Heat and humidity makes them itchy. And it's not wanting to show me. It sounds like, and they end up destroying any blankets and some really rag the fleeces. Any suggestions? I can give my suggestion is that we have sheep that love to itch and destroy coats, and so it's a pain, but we just try to keep those sheep out of areas where they have access to things to rub on, which can really make management a struggle, as far as like keeping them in separate stalls or fields where they don't have anything that they can really like get under to scratch on. But yeah, that might, from my standpoint, the suggestion is like just remove the ability to do it. Is unfortunately kind of, because if they want to itch, they're going to itch. I don't know if anyone else has any suggestions.
Farming is fencing. Check your fences. Make sure that there's no areas where they can snag or put their head through a fence. But Cody sheep here on the northern coast of California are in a very wet, humid climate year round. And I think that they're pretty good fleeces. So it's not totally unattainable.
Any other questions? Well, we have Cody here. So we're coming up on an hour. We have about 8 minutes.
I don't know if you have any experience with ballets or ballet crosses, but since they have such a like long curly fleece, would you still suggest getting them so wet and doing so much brushing to them?
I have never worked on a valet. Working on long wools, like border listers or Lincolns. My advice is to read the fleece. The denser the fleece, and when they have more body and volume, and that goes for all sheep, really, even on traditional fleeces. Read the fleece by handling the texture and the density. The coarser they are, the more water you can add. I would really reach out to some fitters who have worked on the valet, but I like to get them not as wet. And then when I work their fleeces, it's less of a curry comb and more of the pony brush. This is a hard bristled brush that I refer to it as the pony brush, but that's what I would use personally. And then keep your blades pointed down is a tip for that, so that you're not making as in the long wool fleeces. So when I say keep your blades down when you're trimming across the sheep, I would not trim this way as much as I would trim this way. And same with the electrics. Did that answer your question, Brett, or is there more?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've never fitted a sheep at all, and the standard for valets is to leave them in full coat. But if I take them to like state fair, everybody has fitted sheep, and I look out of place.
Exactly. So that's when you just love on that sheep and polish. You can do clean and more study. Um, but oh, right. They did their carcass differently, and then a lot of it talking with people that are used to fitting long wool sheep, like I said, the border listers, the Lincolns, the Wensleydales, like all of those long wool sheep. Take notes from those fitters and people for sure.
Leah had another question with coating sheep after your first fitting. What do you do to combat the top felting uh, and ruining that first shaping? I hope that makes sense. Um, so oh, I can, from our
Yeah.
standpoint, as far as like managing the sheep on a daily basis with the coats, um, my advice is that coats are a lot of work. And so like you're gonna keep you would keep them like a loose coat. So you'd want to make sure the coat's not too tight. Most of the issues we've had as far as like anything where the fleece felts from it rubbing is a coat that's overly tight. So if you're staying on top of your coats fitting correctly, that whole like the felting or the outside edges felting at all and losing their shape isn't a problem. So like that Cody showed in the video, so she was done 10 weeks ago. And she like, and that was the first time, that's the first time she's been worked since then. So other than just like having her coats changed for size or because she likes to snag the front collar on the feeders, you know, that was like she's held her shape as long as you keep their coats changed and keep them fitted to them. So
Yes, as the wool grows, the sheep's going to need a bigger blanket. Some fleece on the tips or the crust of the wool, it's going to felt more. Then there's the blankets that cut into their throat and neck area as well as their hip. I hate those. I complain about them every time I get a sheep on the stand that's been wearing a blanket that really cinches down around their throat and their hip structure. I don't like that because it really does. It just works its way. The blanket works its way into the fleece and then felts it in a knotted pattern. I don't like that. It never sets right. Um, but it's one of those which battle are we going to choose to fight, because you can not have that but then you have a fleece because it's full of VM and it's not blanketed and clean, or you can have the fresh fleece that doesn't have any knots in it. So it's a double-edged sword there.
And if you're using the Rocky coats, you can take the darts out of the butt, which will give them more room.
yes, we make all of our coats using like the Rocky coats as a pattern, and I just have stopped adding the darts because it gives them more room and then you don't get that pressed down over the hip and the tail area. So all of our coats now just don't have the darting around the back. Good point, Jody. Okay. There any last questions? We're up to 2 minutes from an hour. So
thank you all so much for joining and letting me talk about sheep for a while. I really appreciate you all.
and I will be putting this up on YouTube, so feel free to share it. It'll probably be up tomorrow and it'll be ready. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you will join us for next month's. I believe we're doing Flock Basics next month, so look forward to sharing with you guys over the next 4 months more webinars. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.